All right. So let's. So you're recording? I'm recording as well. So okay. Hello, Aaron Saunders from Inclusive Innovation Incubator. We are at In3Talks, I believe
23 or something like that.
23, right? 23, 24.
Yep.
So welcome. It's been quite some time since the world has heard from you. I know you've been doing these random videos of 2-3 minutes, but you closed shop on November 15th of 2020. And since you haven't spoken much about, and we haven't had an In3 talk, so give us a little bit of how it went down, in the sense that what manifested in the closure.
So, I mean, it really was more, procedural than anything else. I mean, for anybody who's ever moved out of their house, you know, it's like moving day is a pain, right? So I kind of dragged it out. So, I was moving stuff out little by little. The last day came, put our stuff in and moved on. I mean, it's one of those things where you don't know how you feel, right? Clearly there's some, for lack of a better word, emotional, something that you kind of go through. It's like you knew it was coming, you knew it was going to end, but it's still, I mean, you're still a little saddened by it, but I reflect on other folks who are a lot worse off than myself, right? And so, I mean, that whole thing, count your blessings, not your disappointments. We accomplished a lot in the physical space. We learned a lot in the physical space. We'll take those lessons learned and we'll pivot, and, find the new model for In3 that reflects the current climate. And that's what we're doing right now. So, I mean, the reality is the continuing to try to own, operate, and maintain a physical space in this economic climate just didn't make sense anyway.
Right.
But you always like to leave on your own, right? You like to make, it's like a relationship. Like, no, I broke up with you. You didn't break up with me, right? It's like, let's just make it clear. I dubbed you. Right? You don't want to be the dumb me.
Yes.
So, but other than that, it's given me time to kind of focus for folks who follow me, my technical content. It's given me a lot more time to focus on the technical content that I'm creating on my YouTube channel. Seeing a lot of growth there, trying to figure out, as you and I discussed before, about how do we, continue, and I'll use your word, mission, that you were kind of pushing me on in the separate chats. Like, how do we continue the mission of providing content to get more folks into the tech space, but recognize that it's still a business, right? This is a lesson I'm going to learn early on that I might have lost on some of my other businesses. It's like, it takes time to generate that content, put it out to market and promote it. And right now, because I have enough subscribers to monetize and run ads, but I don't have enough hours. So the way YouTube works is you have to have at least 1,000 subscribers. And then in a year, you have to have at least 4,000 hours. 4,000 hours? Yes, I believe it's 4,000 hours of watch time on your videos, right? Before you can start monetizing.
Right.
So like, I'm stuck in this middle place where I have about 2,000 hours of video. I have enough subscribers, my subscriber count is going up, but I can't run ads.
Yeah, so no, we'll talk about a little bit more about the content creation and what the importance of your content has been in terms of monetization and from an entrepreneurial perspective. But I want to go back to the fact that you have invested 3 years of your life. I know you needed some time to be reflective. When you closed November 15th, we are December 9th, and it's almost a month since you closed.
We've been pretty quiet.
Indeed, quite quiet, right? And so I just wanted to allocate the due time for the discussion of, one, based on your investment of your time, your energy. I know your personal capital as well, that has been invested in Inclusive Innovation Incubator, which is important for us to discuss it. Because from an entrepreneur perspective, all that investment was for how about you complete that sentence? Was for what?
I mean, I like the way that you use the word investment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I've had some folks talk to me about it, and they're coming at it from, oh, you must be upset because of, they know what as I would say, like you, they know what I have invested in it. But although people use that word investment, they don't really mean investment, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
I knew from the jump that this was a pilot project, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like they're like years and years of experience on how you run an innovation space for Black and brown folks who don't have access to a lot of services. You don't necessarily have the capital and support that you need. There's not like a rule book on how to do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
all the, the armchair quarterbacks who can now sit back and say, oh, you should have done this, you should have done that. It's like, excuse me, you didn't know. You didn't know then. You still don't know now because you haven't done it. And, what I say to some people was like, so you're judging me.
Mm-hmm.
We work $1 billion company, basically, and I'll say they shit the bed, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
how are you going to sit here and tell me, oh, you should have done this and done that, when even we work with all the money, all the capital, everything they had behind them, still struggled to find the right model for them to be successful. And then if you start to look at all of the other co-working spaces, innovate, whatever you want to call them, like there is blood on the streets everywhere, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
instead of me focusing on that, I'm focusing on the lessons learned through the experience and how do we take what we learned from this experience and adjust it for the current economic climate and where people are today. And that's what my focus is on now.
So I fully agree with you, and I think you shared an article for anyone who follows you on LinkedIn, and I believe you shared it on Instagram, if I'm not mistaken, and Facebook perhaps as well. The article that kind of exposed a little bit of what's happening to the Black-owned spaces, the co-working spaces. So perhaps would you want to talk about that a little bit about the article and
yeah, and I'll add the link to the story to the post when we put it on YouTube and in the podcast. Basically, it was a report from The Plug. Cheryl Dorsey has this newsletter that goes out called The Plug. And she basically said like a third of the spaces that they had interviewed the last time around are gone, shut down. Yeah. And I also know that I'm part of this organization called the Black Innovation Alliance. And the last time I checked in with them, they said a large number of the folks that are part of that, they have like a month of runway. Right. Yeah. So clearly, I mean, a lot of folks who do the kind of work we do, we count on sponsorships. Right? Sponsorships and partnerships. And, without those, it's hard for us to kind of make the numbers work. And for those of us who have physical spaces, the revenue generated from the rent and from events and other things helped offset our costs. And so now you take that income away, you take that revenue away, and it just creates a whole new set of challenges. And so now the idea is, how do you get people to value an online community? Right? To the point where they will pay for that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And remember also, we're already focusing on a community who doesn't have a lot of capital to spend. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. The bandwidth of the Black community is getting smaller and smaller, right? And so that's why I appreciated the article, and you were quite candid about that. And you when you posted on LinkedIn, what marked me is how you mentioned that you were one of the victims of the closure, right? Because of the realities of that. So just before we kind of pivot towards the online In3 and all of the other online world in which everyone has to transition, you as an entrepreneur, as an investor in your own vision, it's not that you got outside resources, outside of the small grants or somewhat of the grants and the public-private partnership that you have with the DC government and so on. Talk to us a little bit about what are the lessons learned from this experience, because reality is COVID-19 has changed the game for everyone, and then once the vaccination 2021 comes in, how do you foresee the co-working space of the Black and brown community?
I mean,
and
I
also the
think,
lesson learned. So I want you to address the lesson learned and then what is to come, if that's okay.
I think one of the lessons learned is to have a better understanding and alignment of goals with your partners.
Mm.
And to make sure that you've built the appropriate relationships so that everybody feels like they're benefiting from the relationship, right? Because otherwise, it's not really a relationship. Someone feels like they're doing all the giving and you're doing the taking, and making sure that you have those relationships, because both sides could feel like they're doing all the giving and the other one's doing all the taking, and then you're just kind of stuck. So one lesson learned is you got to spend a lot more time in conversations with your quote partners, whatever you want to call them, but you need to kind of have a better relationship with them, and that's definitely a lesson that I learned through that. Another lesson is that a much heavier focus from jump on identifying additional sponsors. Right?
Absolutely.
We counted this is a post-mortem, right?
Yeah.
Right? We counted on DC government for entirely too much. And we spent a lot of time in the business and not focusing on building the business. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it was a focus on the day-to-day operational stuff, and the other, I'll use a business school word, I was taught in business school, we were being very tactical and not very strategic. And by the time we recognized it and we started being strategic and we knew the direction we were heading, then COVID hit and kind of, but it's not bad because I don't know if we'd be ready for our next step now had we not gone through what we gone through, right? We might still be as naive as we were when we started that process, right?
Right, absolutely.
Which is, I mean, to be frank, and there'll be people that get pissed off, which is where I think a lot of people are now, right? Everybody and their mama is doing workshops online and webinars, and let me help you build your business, and like everybody's got their shingle out pedaling, right?
Yes,
and everybody's online and everybody's accessible, and they'll learn. I mean, the challenge that we have now is like, how do we rise above the noise and, get in front of the people that we need to get in front of and demonstrate the value that we have so that people, understand it. And then also, get to the point where people understand why they're paying for it and the value that they're getting for it, instead of them saying, well, Billy Bob or Jimbo down the street, they have a free one. Why should I pay you when I can get the same thing down there for free? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just the content quality is what's most, and this is where we're going to talk about it a little bit more. So in terms of before we kind of pivot towards what is the online world, and we did say that at some point that we're going to talk about gaming, but perhaps we're just going to touch upon it today. But so what do you foresee for the 2021, 2022, the co-working spaces? Given the reality of most of them have been shutting down in 2020, as you know, it's more about tactics than rather the strategic, and those that haven't been able to kind of transition into the strategy and move on have kind of had to figure out a different model. So what do you see for 2021, a new government coming in, a new administration most likely? What do you foresee for 2021?
I mean, I don't think that things are going to settle back down and get into normal until the spring or until the summer or the fall, right? If we take a look at where folks saying that things are with the vaccine, they're saying that it won't be what am I saying? It won't be accessible, easily accessible until like the end of spring, summertime. Right? When you hear the interviews and they're saying like, when will I be able to just walk into my CVS or Walgreens and say, hey, they're saying like, that won't be until the end of the spring, summertime, right? And so I think the level of confidence that people are going to have of kind of going to spaces, gathering, it's going to take a while for that to kick in, right? And I think, people might say I'm crazy, but I think like we haven't even seen the worst of it yet. Like we still need to get through the winter, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, you know, I think 3 months from now, it'll be interesting to have a conversation about how we got through the winter. Like someone I interviewed today, like honestly, one of the questions they asked was like, you know, do you have any expectation that we have to come to an office or meet? Like, so people are asking that question right now before jobs. Is like, if they don't want to necessarily take a job where they're going to have to go out and meet with people, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so that just lets you know where folks' mind are. And you know, I'll be frank, in our community, it's unfortunate people aren't being as careful as they should be, and you know, Black and brown folks are dying.
Yeah. Mm.
You know, and I don't want
Yeah.
to contribute to that, right? I
Yeah.
don't want to be on someone's YouTube or Instagram, you know, with a bunch of Black folks hanging around me, you know, and then in a couple of months, you know, folks are dead or in the hospital, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's also our skepticism as a culture about
Around, yeah.
based on past history and so on and so forth that we won't talk about.
Right.
But
I mean,
okay.
even as I mentioned to you, you know, talking about the co-working spaces, you know, through I have access to WeWorks that I can work at, and then you know, I've gone to 3 different WeWorks in DC where I've worked on, because you know, at least once a week I got to get out of my house. I'm going crazy, and they're I wouldn't say they're completely empty, but they're empty. Like I maybe see 2 or 3 other people in the spaces that I'm working. Like people just aren't going out, and I mean, these are even with the offices that are in them. Like there aren't even people in their offices.
Yeah.
Just people don't want to be out and be in these spaces now. They're just at home. And so, you know, post COVID, how those spaces evolve. I have some ideas on how I want to approach it, you know, for the work that we do. I'm not prepared to kind of talk about them, but I do have some ideas on what I think is the right approach on how we can kind of rebuild that in-person community along with our strategy for building our online community leading up to that.
Absolutely. I think it's no, this is great because it's the reality of things in terms of our culture. So let's pivot towards the online inclusive innovation incubator. I know from our earlier discussion, offline discussions, that you are building an online platform to ensure to service, to provide the services that you have been providing for the last 3 years under the Inclusive Innovation Incubator. So can you talk a little bit about that? What people are expecting to see once they go to in3dc.com?
I think that the online platform / community that we're focused on probably won't be available in Q1. Right, our focus in Q1 will be I think we have 3 programs that we have lined up for Q1, and so our focus will be more on getting back out there to support the community and support the entrepreneurs that are out there, highlight our partnerships with the folks that we're working with, and to let people know that In3 is still doing the work that we started out to do. It is just online. The purpose of the platform is to create that online community and have a space where folks who have gone through our programming can still come together and kind of work with each other. You know, the feedback that we've gotten from all of the programs that we've run, our workshops and our classes, is the importance of the relationships that the people have built with the cohort that they're in, and we want to provide a space for them to stay engaged. We'll find other strategies using some off-the-shelf software to kind of maintain that community until we can transition it onto our own platform.
Yeah, so the without kind of doing a deeper dive on terms of the program, so I know we have the Inclusive Innovation Labs, which is quite important, the entrepreneurship as well, and other tech programs. So just in terms of creating a parallel with the programs and the realities of today, what do you see in terms of, because a lot of the monies from, and we've heard about it, your newsletter, one of your past newsletters covered that in terms of all these companies that have invested in these legacy organizations or just D&I programs. So how do you, if an investor, meaning a company that wants to do corporate social responsibility and wants to say, hey, you know what, I need to figure out a way to create a pipeline of Black and brown folks in tech or entrepreneurs, what would you say to them?
I mean, it's funny. I sent out a short tweet about that today from, you know, at Clearly Innovative, my other business, we are looking to hire apprentices / interns to kind of bring on to support the work that we're doing. And I tweeted, so in 128 characters, I tweeted about it and took the same tweet and posted it on LinkedIn. And I'm finding qualified candidates. Right? So the talent is out there. It's about the relationship that you have with that community is how I can get the talent, right? So you can spend all the money you want to spend on a head of D&I and all this other stuff, but if you're not building relationships inside of these communities, you're just not going to find the talent that you're looking for. Or you won't find the wealth of it, right? And so you'll continue to have this naive perception that it's just not there. It's not there for you because you haven't demonstrated that you give a shit about that community. Right? And, you know, at a time where people are worried about all the other things that are going on in their lives and around them, like, why do I want to be part of something or someone or somebody that I know doesn't give a shit about me or my community or who I am or what I'm about, right?
Talk to me a little bit more about this whole D&I thing, because without going into the discussions we have offline, but share with us a little bit about your thoughts, the censored thoughts, not the uncensored thoughts.
Actually, I almost got into a longer post about it today, and it comes back to what I was kind of saying at the end there. It's like, you get what you give, right? And this attitude that, well, you're my employee and you should be grateful or you should be thankful that you have this job, right? That attitude needs to go away to start to reap the benefits of, you know, the quality talent that's out there, because they know they're good at what they're doing. And so their point is like, why do I need to go work someplace where someone has that attitude? Like they're doing me a favor, right? It's bad enough sometimes you go into these situations and everybody else around you feels like you're only there because you're Black. But then when the people that are hiring you think that even they're doing you a favor, and it's like, why I got to deal with this bullshit, right? Why do I need to go work in that community? You know, I don't care about, you know, what kind of quote D&I program you claim you have or what's happening internally, right? In the end, you're going to show your ass, right? As they say.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And what people should realize is in this day and age of how quickly information can fly around on social media, you know, you can't hide who you are any longer. Right? So like, I don't know if you saw like this whole debacle with Coinbase that's going on now. They had the huge story in New York Times about how they were treating their Black employees. You saw recently what happened with Google and then firing that woman. You simply can't hide anymore. Right? So you could say one thing and post it on your website, and now everybody, you know, you can go to every website, they got at least one person of color on their HR page. Right? Everybody knows that hustle. Let's put one smiling person of color there to make it look like we give a shit.
Just to say,
Right? But all someone needs to do is look at your social media, you know, look at your CEOs, your leaders on Twitter, on social media, and they're all showing their assets, right? So you already know. So it's like, if you're going to make the investment to really make a change, you need to make an investment all the way through your organization, not just in one department that's set aside it's supposed to be focused on that. And I think that until that becomes a reality, I just don't know how you move forward. I mean, I think there's some organizations that get it. I still think that I still think it's hard because there's a mismatched set of expectations. Right? Like folks are like, y'all need to fix this shit today. Right? Like they just want to snap their fingers and it be done. And the reality is it just doesn't work like that.
It's fully agree. I think we've talked about it, and I'm happy that you give the censored version of your thoughts in many ways. You know, so let's talk about because you have been in the tech space for quite some time. The one thing I've always admired about you is the fact that you have had so much experience in the tech space. I mean, when I found out that you were first one of the very few who started on e-commerce platforms, for instance, and you traveled the world doing e-commerce things and troubleshooting and so on, and I hadn't known you for years before I even knew about that about you, right? And so tell us about, understanding where the world is going. And you and I have talked offline about where a lot of the world is going and how the Black and brown communities will be impacted and so on. How do you see your work being relevant in that space? How, in terms of importance, in terms of impact, and so on?
I mean, our focus is, and it's interesting because one of the interns I interviewed today asked me a similar question. And, it really is, for folks who are paying attention, it's the convergence of all the work that we do in the tech space with the work that we do in In3. Like, a lot of folks are just like, they don't see how the two fit together.
Mm.
Right? Actually funny, another person that I interviewed today, a previous work experience he was teaching Black and brown kids about HTML and CSS, right? Mm. And, he told me that he spent a lot of time just convincing them why it mattered. Like why understanding technology and how to build stuff was important. Like, these kids just thought it was a complete waste of time. They had no interest in it whatsoever. And that's a problem, right?
Yeah.
The one thing that COVID has shown us is that technology matters. The ability to reach people matters. And that a lot of the way we communicate with each other from our personal perspective, our professional perspective, from a business perspective has changed, and a lot of it is online. Right? And you need to understand technology to get online. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
Even if you aren't going to build it, you need to understand what opportunities are out there, what tools are out there, how to leverage these tools. Like, all of that stuff is a requirement. And before, people felt like they could take their time to get there, but time's up.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Time's up. And it's created an opportunity for those people who were already there, or those people who are more comfortable with technology, for them to kind of excel. And for those who weren't there, they're behind. And for those who aren't willing to kind of, make the effort to learn or make the investment in the technology, they will die. I mean, it's just as simple as that.
So the Black and brown communities, because we both know the realities of the Black and brown communities, technology, they're not there yet. I know you have been creating a technology solution to address the needs of Black and brown folks in the e-commerce space and so on, to make it as simple and being able to transact in a smooth manner, right? Talk a little bit about that in terms of what do you see, because you're a small business owner. You see the plight of the Black community in terms of the small business, and you've been talking about this whole technology gap between those that know and those that don't know, right? And those that can use it and those that can't use it. Do a deep, yes.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll give you a perfect example on a client that we're working with now, which hopefully we'll have her on one of our In3Talks. Like, we're building a technology platform for her to work with other small business owners, right? And she's went out and spoken to some of these small business owners, and like, even to this day, like one of the customers were like, "Why do I need a delivery service?" Like, even as bad as things have been in March, so a retailer that she spoke to was like, why do I need to do delivery? Like, they don't understand that that's where the world is going to. Right?
Yes.
And this is a Black-owned business that had been in business for a long time. Use the term that we use, like at the mom and pop shop, maybe 2 to 3 employees. And they are still blind to the fact that you need to meet customers where they are, and customers want shit delivered to them, right? We live in a world where Amazon has convinced everyone that you should not have to wait for anything. You should be able to go to a website, go to your
Mm.
phone,
Yeah.
ask for something, and it should be
And
there
should
by the
be.
next day at the latest.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you know, that before people say, "Oh, that's a white people's problem." It's not a white people problem
No.
anymore. Like everyone has that expectation now, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And smaller retailers, even like, so this whole idea of, you know, Main Street, let's support Main Street. I mean, we can have a separate discussion about like what is Main Street now,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? If
Yeah.
if 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 things are being delivered and pretty much anything I want I can get within 24 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What is Main Street? Like how do you save Main Street?
Mm.
Before, you know, remember, as we're digressing, but before, remember, there was these big arguments, or like, we're not letting the big box retailers move into our towns. Remember when that was an issue?
Yes, of course. Of course.
Now they're like, shit, I don't need to move in your town.
Yeah.
I don't need to come to your town to close all your businesses because people are just buying their stuff online anyway.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
So I'll just wait for y'all to close and then I'll come. I don't even need to fight with you anymore. Right?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Because it's a different ballgame now. You have this is why going back to technology.
Yeah, and what's happened is that
Mm.
the I'm certain the Walmarts, the Targets, the Amazons, they're not saying it, but like COVID has been a blessing in disguise for all of them.
Mm-hmm. They've made more money. I
They
mean,
made a
data
lot of
shows
money,
made
and
more
they
money.
basically done what they've changed the customer's mindset about buying stuff online in a way that would have probably taken them millions of dollars and years to convince people. It's just done now.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Yeah.
before, people like, oh, I don't want to put my credit card online, or oh, I don't know about this delivery. Like people had, and why should I bother? I can just go down the street and get it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not your credit card's online now. You're
Yeah.
hooked.
Yes. Everything is online. Your ID is online. Your credit card is online. Everything.
And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
how do you go back?
Yeah, I mean, it's a point of no return to many degrees. I think it opens up an opportunity for the Black community, especially from the technology perspective, in terms of going into the cybersecurity realm, because the more we're online, the more we're susceptible to being frauded, and this is where, again, in the cybersecurity space, is there enough representation, right? In fact, you talked about, and I'm not sure how much we can tab, so let's be with caution. Let's have this discussion in a sense that of Google, right, that fired that Black lady, the ethical AI, and we've talked about AI. I mean, we've spent in a lot of time talking about AI, and I still, but let's not talk about the AI aspect of it. Let's talk more about the representation aspect of it, right? And so I know it has been near and dear to you, even while we were negotiating in terms of with sponsors and so on. One of the main things that you said is, I'm not going to discriminate anybody on the way that they are unable to pitch their business or so on and so forth, because our communities are not trained per se in terms of how to pitch, how to do things. So understanding the reality of technology space, how do you see Inclusive Innovation Incubator online providing services that are necessary to the community? So talk about the future written in code, talk about...
So it's really is, we're enablers. That's the way I like to look at it. Mm-hmm. I tried to use this analogy with Denise, and I'm going to kind of mangle it again.
Denise is the CFO, just by the way, for other people that don't know.
And we were talking about investments, and someone always said, like, you invest in the people making the Pixes and the Axes, right? Because people are always going to need them, right? And so our approach is like, hey, let's invest in the fundamental skills, right? Let's provide the training and support for the fundamental skills, so that even if your first idea dies, you still have the fundamental skills to take it to another idea, or to another idea, or to become part of a team with those skills that you've learned, which is
Mhm.
why the way we teach our technology training courses we're teaching you how to build something, right? There's not, honestly, there's not a heavy emphasis on algorithms or all the other kind of data structures. It's just about how do you build something, right?
Mhm.
Because that's
Mhm.
the first step. Because if you see the win there, then maybe you'll make the investment to kind of learn all the other ancillary skills and expertise that you need to take it to the next step, right?
Mhm.
As opposed to this eat your peas first before you can do the other thing, right?
Right.
So like one of my challenges even when I took computer science was, we spent all this time working on algorithms and data structures. I'm like, but I haven't built anything yet. And I was getting bored, right? I want
Mm.
to see an outcome, right?
Mhm.
Figuring out
Mhm.
how to do a bubble sort is not an outcome for me, right?
Mm. Mm.
And so that's why we focus on the outcomes, which are something that you can see, feel, and touch. That was an idea that you had that you made real. So then hopefully if you want to make it better, then you'll want to understand the fundamentals underneath it and you'll dig deeper and dive deeper, right? So that is it. That is the approach that we use. Technology is a huge enabler.
Yeah.
And technology is an enabler that can help support the overall growth of our community. And that's why it's a big focus of ours. From the training and support that we provide in 3 Labs, it's really about, there's a lot of creative energy that I believe is just pent up in our community, but it needs to be, fortunately or unfortunately, I mean, it's just a reality. There's a specific way that those who control the dollars at this point want to see it delivered to them, right?
Mhm. Yes, absolutely.
And it is what it is, right? You can
Mhm.
fight it all you want, but you're still asked out. You got nothing, right? Or you could
Yeah.
say, this is how people want to see content presented. These are
Mhm.
the terms that they want you to understand. This
Mhm.
is how they like to see. I mean, here's a perfect example. For the longest time, everyone said, you have to write a business plan.
Yeah.
So no matter how good your idea was, no matter how great an entrepreneur or marketer you were, if you didn't have a business plan, you couldn't get a meeting. You couldn't get in the door. The bank wouldn't talk to you, right? So
Yeah.
now so then we pivoted to this whole lean model canvas or whatever. Then people are like, you
Mhm.
got to have a canvas. If you don't have a canvas, I'm not going to talk to you. And so we would meet people. I mean, you know this. We would meet people all the time who didn't even know what it was.
Mhm. Mhm.
So if you don't
Yeah.
even know what it is, no matter how good your idea is, you're just not going to get into some rooms. You're just not going to get access to some networks or capital. So then we got to teach you how to do that. Then the next big thing is everybody wants to see a pitch deck.
Mhm.
And a pitch deck should have these slides in it. And I want to
Yeah.
see these numbers. And like, if you don't know that, but you have a great idea, you're never going to get access, right?
Yeah.
So this is what I mean about kind of providing the kind of underlying expertise and experience, and understanding the language or the terminology on how you get into the game. That's
Mhm.
where we want to play, right?
Yes. Yes.
So, you could be you could have the best idea in the world. But if you can't present it in a way that a potential investor or a potential, partner who's seeing tons of deals and tons of opportunities, right? So
Mhm.
I don't want to give them too many excuses, but if you kind of flip to the other side, right? If I'm looking at 100 different companies, if I could see all the information in the exact same format, the exact same structure, it makes it a lot easier for me to process it as opposed to
Mhm.
the different format that everybody's bringing in,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's the way the game is now, right? That's the hustle.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, this is great in a sense because one of the things that we wanted to address today was the in3 the closure of in3 and on where in3 is going, and I know we are getting about to the 20-minute mark, and past a little bit,
yeah,
and so we will transition for those of us who are on Clubhouse. We will transition this discussion on Clubhouse. We will be talking about gaming. Last time you shared with me an article that was quite puzzling about, again, the growing industry. It's getting to like billions of dollars, and again, we're consumers but not producers. Um, and I know you have that it's not just a game, and I do believe that you're hosting an event
we're trying to
soon.
figure out kind of
Yeah.
what I mean. So we had partnered with Capital Underground Gaming for the last 2 years, I think,
Yeah.
2 years,
Yeah.
and we've always done an event around the holidays. And I reached out to them to say, hey, what is it that we can do just to kind of stay tethered to the community, this holiday season. So we're trying to figure out, is there something that we can kind of do online to just bring folks together and maybe host a small tournament online or something like that. Like I said, it just keeps the community there so that when things start to transition to whatever it's going to be next, you know, we can continue to move forward. Because, you know, as I stated, you know, gaming's huge. I mean, the industry just continues to grow. I sent you this link today to this article from Andreessen Horowitz. They have like a whole series on what's happening with social media. And if you start to dig into that, I mean, you see where gaming and esports is kind of tied into all of this. And surprisingly, there's still people who just don't get it. Like,
Yeah.
just still don't see the potential. I mean, there's still people who don't see the huge potential that's happening in the social media space and kind of the craziness that's going on there.
Yeah.
The numbers that these guys are kind of blowing out are just unbelievable. And the hours of time that people are spending, you know, either in games or on platforms that are streaming around games are crazy. And like you said, we can talk about some more later, but even like last night, I watched this video. This guy has, you know, a couple of thousand subscribers. He's getting thousands of views on videos, and all he's like, it hit me last night how crazy it was. This guy had a video on reviewing a game that won't be released until November of 2021.
Right? Are you kidding?
Right? And thousands of views on this video, right? Like, and so, because I was thinking about it, it's like these companies right now, they don't even really need to put a lot of marketing dollars in anymore, right? Yeah. They just leak some content, and then these streamers or talking heads on YouTube and these other platforms just create tons of content around these little pieces of information that they're leaking.
Yeah. And
thousands of people come and watch this stuff, and then they're just hungry for more. It's insane. This game, Cyberpunk 2077, I think it drops tomorrow. Like, they have been hyping this game for months, and a lot of the content generated around it is not even coming from the company who built the game. There's just like a whole community built around it, like generating video content, articles, blog posts, podcasts, all about this game that hasn't even been released yet.
Unbelievable. I mean, and this is the build-up, because now even their marketing strategy for products have changed.
Yeah.
You know, because they have this influencer marketing, they're pushing on that more and more. But again, it's how does the Black community benefit from it?
How do we benefit from that?
Because I know your program is not just a game; it's all about that. It's how does the Black community stop becoming just consumers, but also producers and owners. So as we're wrapping up, a few things that I know we've touched upon is what Inclusive Innovation Incubator is and will be. 3 programs being launched in the beginning of next year. 2 sponsored Inclusive Innovation Labs, 1 sponsored Future Written in Code. End of this year, you said that you're hosting It's Not Just a Game. Am I right?
Yep, we're working on trying to get something together before the end of the year. And then, you know, we'll have a new website first quarter to 2021. And then, you know, we'll start aggressively promoting the work that we're doing. We're always, you know, for anybody who's listening, we are looking for partners/sponsors sponsors for us to bring programming to other areas. So, you know, specifically Fairfax County, kind of PG County, Montgomery County, kind of in our range, specifically sponsors or organizations that have community and are looking for the type of programming that we talk about that's intentionally focused on diverse and under-resourced communities. Reach out. We're happy to have a conversation and figure out a way for us to kind of work together to bring some programming.
So where can they reach you? I mean, in regards if they're interested, a sponsor is interested in having a discussion with you about be it DNI or having a discussion about sponsoring one of the Inclusive Innovation Incubator labs or the Future Written in Code, where can they reach you?
They can reach us directly by just sending an email to info@in3dc.com. Just kind of give a brief overview, then we'll schedule a 30-minute call to kind of have a conversation, and then we'll go from there. anybody listening, I'm open to 30-minute calls with most people to kind of sit down and have a conversation about opportunities to work together. I respect your 30 minutes of time, so I ask you to respect my 30 minutes of time. But, it's about building relationships, figuring out how to collaborate, cooperate to kind of keep things moving forward.
Beautiful, beautiful. Where can they reach you on social media?
Aaron K. Saunders on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And then for Inclusive Innovation Incubator, it's IN3DC, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn.
And the new trend that everybody's following you on is Clubhouse. So where can they reach you on Clubhouse?
I think I'm just Aaron K. Saunders on Clubhouse.
Okay, so, beautiful, beautiful.
Right.
So thank you so much, Aaron. Thank you for sharing your experience about In3, the Inclusive Innovation Incubator for the physical location in Washington, D.C. that has now transitioned online. The website is in3dc.com, right?
And yes, and then In3Talks, this video can be found on my YouTube channel, which is Aaron Saunders CI for Clearly Innovative. And then the In3Talks can be found on any place your podcast, but mostly Apple Podcasts. It can be found, and then Anchor, which is now Spotify. So it can be found on Apple and Spotify.
Oh, lovely. Oh, so Anchor got bought up?
Yes.
Oh, did not know. Okay, lovely.
All right.
Thank you. Let's transition to, wonderful. Let's transition.